Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Russia's cut off natural gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria as tension over the war in Ukraine continues to escalate.
Got the rubles?
Russian company Gazprom said it suspended gas delivery because both countries refused to begin paying in rubles. The president of the European Commission accused Russia of using gas as a, quote, instrument of blackmail. Both Poland and Bulgaria rely heavily on Russian gas. Meanwhile, a series of explosions occurred inside Russia this morning in three provinces bordering.
So what does that mean? They're going to have to get their gas from other places, more expensive places? American gas is like 3 times as much as that Russian gas?
In Ukraine, at least one of the blasts occurred in an ammunition depot. This comes as Germany's announced it'll begin sending dozens of armored anti-aircraft vehicles to Ukraine in a marked policy shift. On Tuesday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with military leaders from 40 nations at the U.S. Air Base in Ramstein, Germany.
Ramstein. This message was paid in part or in whole by Raytheon.
Austin vowed allied nations would do more to help arm Ukraine.
Wait, what?
From 40 nations at the U.S. Air Base in Ramstein, Germany. Austin vowed allied nations would do more to help arm Ukraine.
This is that thing that Amy does where she just uncritically says what, like this guy says. She just says it uncritically. Hello? Why?
But we don't have any time to waste. The briefings today laid out clearly why the coming weeks will be so crucial for Ukraine. So we've got to move at the speed of war.
Not that great.
And I know that all the leaders leave today more resolved than ever to support you.
Now they're literally letting him just go. There's no one, they're not talking about it critically, they're just letting him talk.
Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression and atrocities.
More details are emerging about how the United States is providing real-time intelligence, even specific coordinates, to Ukraine to help them attack Russian forces.
Definitely.
NBC News is reporting Ukraine shot down a Russian transport plane carrying hundreds of troops in the early days of the war, based on information provided by the United States.
Really?
The U.S. intelligence has also helped Ukraine move its air defenses to avoid Russian strikes. In addition, NBC is reporting the CIA is, quote, devoting significant resources by gathering intelligence to help protect Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On Tuesday, Russian...
Amy, you did it again. All right, who told you that? Why are you saying it uncritically? They just told you they pretty much got, like, CIA boots on the ground. They're, like, saying the quiet part out loud now. Right? Holy moly. I actually did pre-watch this, but this is striking me rather odd right now.
Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the West's arming of Ukraine is jeopardizing negotiations to end the fighting. He accused NATO of waging a proxy war in Ukraine, saying it could lead to World War III.
Here's the tough part. If you're listening to that and that makes you feel uncomfortable, you're like, oh, if you agree with that, you know, that's Russian propaganda. Well, yeah, it's like literally true. It's like propaganda in the purest sense, but it's also it could also be true. And if that makes you uncomfortable, it's because you're a lib.
Of course, these weapons will be a legitimate target for Russia's military acting within the context of the special operation, and the storage facilities, including those in western Ukraine, have been targeted more than once by Russian forces. How can it be otherwise? If NATO essentially engages in war with Russia through a proxy and is arming that proxy, war means war.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also warned about the risk of a nuclear war.
And this is why we don't want to be arming, you know, like far-right fascists right on the border of Russia. We are playing with fire by like throwing gas on it and like going, hey, let's see what happens. And I'm telling you, we just don't want nuclear winter. We don't want that. Yeah. Welcome in, your mama. We don't want that, right?
Really, the risks are really considerable, and I would not want to elevate those risks artificially. Many would like that. The danger is serious, real, and we must not underestimate it.
The U.S. denounced Lavrov's comments about nuclear war as the height of irresponsibility.
Who said that? Who said that? And they would know, wouldn't they? They would know, whoever's saying that.
Tuesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres met with Lavrov and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. During their meeting, Putin agreed in principle to allow the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross to help evacuate civilians from the besieged steel plant in Mariupol.
That is so fascinating. Couple things right there. UN, you know, if you're concerned about war crimes, you might want to look into UN. Number two, these citizens at the steel plant in Mariupol, we just made a video about that. Check out my videos. I made it in... Oh, no, the thumbnail was for something else. The really good one. But what did she just say about him? They're trying to get him out? I hate to say this. My worst case scenario theory is that they're being held hostage in this steel plant. Or maybe more likely is that they're being used as human shields by the Azovs, the Azov battalion, the Azovs. Isn't that what they call them? All right, what did she say, though?
And Russian President Vladimir Putin
in Moscow. They got the big long table.
During their meeting, Putin agreed in principle to allow the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross to help evacuate civilians from the besieged steel plant in Mariupol. Guterres is meeting with Zelensky in Kyiv Thursday. We'll speak to Professor Alfred McCoy.
It's like one of the last places the Azovs are... I keep saying that. The Azov battalion is like holed up, right? This is Putin saying, hey, all right, here's my tinfoil hat take. This is Putin saying, hey, we're letting them out. They're being held hostage or being used as human shields, right? This is him. I think this is him signaling that. I could be wrong.
About the war in Ukraine, his latest piece is How to End the War in Ukraine, a Solution Beyond Sanctions. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency visited the Chernobyl nuclear power station in Ukraine.
And she says nothing. She doesn't notice any of this. She doesn't say anything about it. She's just doing the headlines, reading her lines.
Monday on the 36th anniversary of the
Who wrote the lines?
Plant's meltdown. Rafael Grossi vowed help for Ukraine to repair damage caused when Russian forces seized the facility in February. He praised workers at the plant for helping to prevent what could have been another nuclear disaster.
In this case, what we had was a nuclear safety situation that was not normal, that could have developed into an accident. I think the first credit must go to the operators, to these people here, because they carried on their work in spite of all the difficulties, in spite of the stress, in spite of the fact that they could not be working normally. They continued working as if nothing had happened, so they kept the situation stable, so to speak.
Russia and the United States have participated in a prisoner swap. Russia has released Marine veteran Trevor Reed in exchange for a Russian pilot who was jailed in Connecticut on drug charges.
Marine veteran?
Reed had been jailed in Russia since 2019. Russia is continuing to hold WNBA player Brittany Griner, who was arrested in February.
He doesn't say why he was arrested, why he was held. She only mentions this one.
After authorities say they found vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her luggage at an airport near Moscow. Vice President Kamala Harris has tested positive for COVID-19. According to her office, she's not showing any symptoms due to a recent travel schedule. She has not been in recent close contact with President Biden. This comes as new research from the CDC suggests more than 60% of adults and 75% of children in the United States have been infected with COVID at some point during the pandemic. That's a far higher total than the official number of confirmed cases.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is warning cuts to COVID testing are making it harder for public health officials to track the pandemic. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus
making it harder for me to know whether or not I got it. I'd like to know.
Spoke Tuesday in Geneva.
As many countries reduce testing, WHO is receiving less and less information about transmission and sequencing. This makes us increasingly blind to patterns of transmission and evolution. But this virus won't go away just because countries stop looking for it. It's still spreading, it's still changing, and it's still killing.
The New York Times has published new audio of House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy privately saying members of his own party were putting people in jeopardy by using dangerous rhetoric following the deadly January 6th insurrection. This recording is from January 10th, 2021.
Got something sent now about Newsmax, something Matt Gaetz said, where he's calling people's names out, saying an anti-Trump in this type of atmosphere. In some of the other places, this is serious stuff people are doing that has to stop. And Louis,
they're making Steve Scalise look reasonable.
Some real concerning things. It's
Louis Gohmert,
potentially illegal. What he's doing, he's putting people in jeopardy, and he doesn't need to be doing this. We saw what people would do in the Capitol. And these people came prepared with everything.
That was Kevin McCarthy, as well as Republican Congressmember Steve Scalise on a call with other Republican lawmakers. January.
They're making those two guys look reasonable. That's how awful this is.
McCarthy would later defend the same lawmakers he privately criticized. Tensions continuing to escalate over the Solomon Islands after the Pacific Island nation signed a security deal with China. On Tuesday, a high-ranking U.S. diplomat refused to rule out the U.S. taking military action against the Solomon Islands if China established a military presence on the islands. During a news briefing, the State Department official...
We have how many fucking military bases all over the world? They've got, and China's got like how many? One?
Daniel Crittenbrink said the U.S. respects the Solomon Islands' sovereignty, but warned against China's presence in the region, saying the United States would, quote, very naturally respond to those concerns, unquote.
There's this new Cold War. They're just ramping it up with China now. The U.S. is so fucking shameless in this whole fucking thing. They would very naturally respond to those concerns, unquote. All right, here comes the... I think actually Amy's got something good to say about this. Here we go.
Quote, by some counts, the U.S. operates over 800 military bases around the world. China opened its first overseas base just 4 years ago in the African nation of Djibouti. In Burma, Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to...
She did a good job there. I give credit to Amy when she does a good job. She's often sort of participated in the what I like to call China bad propaganda. She often uncritically repeats the China bad propaganda. I think she did a decent job responding to it. Give credit when credit's due, right? I'm not here to, shit on Amy Goodman and their crew all day, every day. We'd like to see better stuff like this, so of course you gotta celebrate it when you see it. All right.
Of Djibouti. In Burma, Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to another 5 years in prison after a closed military court found her guilty on corruption charges. Suu Kyi was overthrown alongside Burma's civilian leadership in a deadly military coup in February of 2021.
The white wall tires? The white wall tires and the dancing calisthenics lady?
At least one migrant is dead, at least 24 others missing after their boat capsized about 135 miles from Spain's Canary Islands. The Spanish Coast Guard has rescued 36 people so far. This comes just days after at least 20 migrants died after a group of boats sank off the coast of Tunisia. Israel's carried out deadly airstrikes in Syria, targeting several locations near Damascus. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is reporting 9 people have died, including 5 Syrian soldiers. Israeli forces have killed an 18-year-old Palestinian after Israel conducted an armed raid near Jenin in the occupied West Bank. 3 other Palestinians, including a 16-year-old, were shot. On Tuesday, hundreds of Palestinians gathered in Jericho for the funeral of a 20-year-old Palestinian man who was shot in the head by Israeli troops during a raid on a refugee camp.
My gosh.
In news from Colombia, the nation's human rights ombudsman has revealed at least 52 Colombian human rights activists and local leaders were killed in the first 3 months of the year, marking a significant increase over last year. The victims included 28 land defenders and 9 indigenous activists. Meanwhile, 10 retired members of Colombia's military have publicly admitted to assassinating more than 100 civilians about 15 years ago, then covering up their deaths by falsely portraying their victims to be militants killed in combat, so-called false positives. The soldiers admitted to their role in the deaths and disappearances during a tribunal organized by Colombia's Transitional Justice Tribunal, the special jurisdiction for peace. This is Nestor Gutierrez, a former Colombian army official.
We made a theater to show supposed combats because of the pressure from the high command. I killed relatives of the people who are here, taking them with lies and deceit, shooting them, murdering them cruelly, cowardly, and planting guns and saying that they died in combat, that they were guerrilla.
Tuesday's testimony came just days after Colombia's Special Jurisdiction for Peace revealed nearly 6,000 people were killed or disappeared by paramilitaries over a 20-year period as part of a military-backed campaign against the left-wing Patriotic Union Party. President Biden's privately told...
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm not too close to what happened in Colombia. I would not be surprised if the CIA somehow were arming them or training them. This sounds like the same Contra shit that they did all over. Counter-revolutionary stuff that they did all over Central and South America, all over the world. What is going on, dude? This is what the anarcho-NATOists want. Yeah.
Against the left-wing Patriotic Union Party. President Biden's privately told members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus he's considering taking executive action to cancel an unspecified amount of federal student debt in the coming months. On Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed Biden is considering taking executive action.
And we have talked about how...
They've been talking about this for months. Didn't they look into it and then they didn't tell us whether or not they found whether or not he could just do it? And I think we know that he can.
We are
just
looking
sign it
at,
away.
and he is looking at other executive
just do
authority
it.
Options he has to bring
Fucking
relief
Democrats,
to
dude.
People who have student loans. So that's what he conveyed during the meeting yesterday.
President Biden's pardoned
They're
3
paid to
people
lose.
and commuted the sentence.
The Democrats are paid to lose. They're paid to not get W's. You know what I mean? That's a W. Go get your W. You'd look good. You'd look good to people who vote for Democrats, right? They would vote for you harder. You'd have more people vote. I just don't get it, man. They're paid to lose.
Sentence of 75 nonviolent drug offenders. One of the pardons went to 86-year-old
Do it
Abraham
already.
Bolden Sr., who was the first black Secret Service agent to serve on a presidential detail. Bolden was jailed on federal bribery charges in the 1960s, but has long claimed he was framed after speaking out against racism within the Secret Service. And Harvard University's pledged to spend a $100 million fund to redress...
That story was for libs, dude. They're like, oh, poor cop. Like, no, he was a cop, dude.
The school's deep
Secret
ties
Service?
to slavery.
That's CIA shit.
On Tuesday, the school issued a $100...
It's CIA shit. He was a whistleblower, though? But still, he's like CIA. Like, isn't Secret Service means he was CIA? Right? How much good can you do as a whistleblower or you know, even if you do some good as a whistleblower, you were just CIA, dude. And she's trying to like gin up sympathy for CIA guys? No, man, not in my house. Not where I'm from. This guy was CIA, right? That's how you get into the Secret Service. This guy was probably at Dealey Plaza. Was that 62? I can't remember what year. I'm just sorry. I think Secret Service guys are like CIA adjacent at the very least. Okay. I got to learn more about that for sure.
Address the school's deep ties to slavery. On Tuesday, the school issued a 130-page report that revealed at least 41 prominent people connected to the school owned enslaved people. This includes 4 former presidents of Harvard. The report states, quote, enslaved men and women served Harvard presidents and professors and fed and cared for Harvard students. Moreover, throughout this period and well into the 19th century, the university and its donors benefited from extensive financial ties to slavery.
Oh, my God.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org,
the War and Peace Report.
Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Juan Gonzalez in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
And then they cut it off right there. All right. That's Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Beaming them in. And I gave you my reactions live there. I hope you enjoyed the clip. I got a cat in my lap right now, so I can't exactly sit up. If you're watching the YouTube clip of my reaction to Amy Goodman and the Democracy Now! Crew, make sure you come hang out with me here. Right here on the twitch.tv, you can hang out with these cool people in the chat, and you can chat with me and talk about the stuff, and we can learn about things together. All right. Make sure you support on Patreon. Love your face. All right, thank you, patrons. Blake B, Boondocks Dragon, Hanson, Glenn Allen, Tony, Willie, Scott, Dean. Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Carl, Mike. Love your face.